Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, I'm just making some setting.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna everybody.
Hare Krishna, Dandavad Pranam Prabhuji.
Dandavad Pranam everyone. So let's begin without delay. So we'll do a short invocation as usual. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashta Prayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtuki. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Ghora Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you very much for tuning in shortly. Sorry we couldn't have our session last week due to Janmashtami celebrations, but nice to see you all here. So Neela Mataji, are you able to assign people, different devotees for reading different sections when I say?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, so if you can just make a note and rotate devotees, that would be great. Thank you so much for that wonderful service. So without much delay, share screen.
Mataji, if you can spare me, please. I'm out far.
No problem, Prabhuji.
Also, Mataji, I'm on the iPhone, so I mean see the reading screen properly. Okay.
Okay. No problem.
Oh, screen sharing.
Okay, so this is chapter 4. It is entitled The Appearance of Sri Narada. So if someone can read from verse 1 to 13. Neela Mataji, you can assign.
Dhruv can read, Prabhuji.
Yeah, a little bit louder.
Dhruv, are you there? Okay, he's not there. Then Sumedh can go for it, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
The appearance of Sri Narada. Text 1. Vyasadeva said, on hearing Suta Goswami speak thus, Shaunaka Muni, who was the elderly, learned leader of all the rishis engaged in that prolonged sacrificial ceremony, congratulating Suta Goswami by addressing him as follows. Text 2. Shaunaka said, O Suta Goswami, you are the most fortunate and respected of all those who can speak and recite. Please relate the pious message of Srimad Bhagavatam, which was spoken by the great and powerful sage Shukadeva Goswami. Text 3. In what period and at what place was this first begun, and why was this taken up? From where did Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa, the great sage, get the inspiration to compile all this literature? Text 4. His, Vyasadeva's, son was a great devotee, an equibalanced monist whose mind was always concentrated in monism. He was transcendental to mundane activities, but being unexposed, he appeared like an ignorant person. Text 5. While Srila Vyasadeva was following his son, beautiful young damsels who were bathing naked covered their bodies with cloth. Although Srila Vyasadeva himself was not naked, but they had not done so when his son had passed. The sage inquired about this, and the young ladies replied that his son was purified, and when looking at them made no distinction between male and female, but the sage made such distinctions. How was he, Shukadev, the son of Vyasa, recognized by the citizens when he entered the city of Hastinapur, now Delhi, after wandering in the province of Kuru and Jangla, appearing like a madman, dumb and retarded? How did it so happen that King Parikshit met this great sage, making it possible for this great transcendental essence of the Vedas to be sung to him? He, Shukadev Goswami, was accustomed to stay at the door of a householder only long enough for a cow to be milked, and he did this just to sanctify the residence. Text 9. It is said that Parikshit Maharaj is a great first-class devotee of the Lord, and his birth and activities are all wonderful. Please tell us about him. Text 10. He was a great emperor and possessed all the opulences of his acquired kingdom. He was so exalted that he was increasing the prestige of the Pandu dynasty. Why did he give up everything to sit down on the bank of the Ganges and fast until death? Text 11. He was such a great emperor that all his enemies would come and bow down at his feet and surrender all their wealth for their own benefit. He was full of youth and strength, and he possessed kingly opulences that were difficult to give up. Why did he want to give up everything, including his life? Text 12. Those who are devoted to the cause of the personality of Godhead live only for the welfare, development, and happiness of others. They do not live for any selfish interest. So even though Emperor Parikshit was free from all attachment to worldly possessions, how could he give up his mortal body, which was the shelter for others? Text 13. We know that you are expert in the meaning of all subjects, except some portions of the Vedas, and thus you can clearly explain the answers to all the questions we have just put to you.
Thank you, Sumedha. Thank you very much for that. So in the third chapter, Suta Goswami explained at the end about Bhagavatam. That is the first time Suta Goswami mentions the name Bhagavatam to the sages headed by Shaunaka. So just to go back, the sages of Naimisharanya, headed by Shaunaka, were gathered in the forest of Naimisharanya, and after doing a prolonged sacrifice, then they decided to offer an elevated seat to Suta Goswami, who is expert in the subject matter of Vedas and Puranas, and began inquiring from him and asking all such wonderful questions. And Suta Goswami, they asked 6 questions in the first chapter, and those 6 questions were answered in chapter 2 and in chapter 3. And in chapter 3, at the end, so from verse 40 onwards, this is chapter 3, you can see that he started to glorify from verse 40. So this Bhagavatam is a literary incarnation of God. It is non-different from him. It is compiled Vyasdev. It is all good, all blissful, all perfect. And he gives a little bit of history. So he composed, Vyasdev composed, then he instructed it to his son Vyasdev. Vyasdev instructed to his son Shukadev Goswami. Shukadev in turn repeated this message to Parikshit Maharaj, who is on the verge of death, like that. So I was also there when Shukadev Goswami was narrating this Bhagavatam to Maharaj Parikshit. I heard it with rapt attention, and I would let you listen. I would narrate that very Srimad Bhagavatam to you all. So that's where it ended. So Shaunaka's, then in the 4th chapter, so Shaunaka, the head of the all sages, there were, it is said there were over 70,000 sages gathered in the forest of Naimisharanya. So they chose a leader. It's not that everyone asking one question or something like that. So so they chose a leader. That leader was Shaunaka. So he asked further questions upon hearing this upon hearing from Suta Goswami about this Bhagavatam. So these questions, there were a number of questions, but they are categorized into 3 sections. Okay, so those 3 sections are, number 1, the history of Bhagavatam, the how Vyasadev got inspiration to compile Srimad Bhagavatam, when and where, how he took up this mission. That is given in the verse 3. So I'm summarizing. First one is about the history or the inspiration, how Vyasadev got inspiration to compile this Bhagavatam. So that's the first area. And the second one is that about the hearer. Who heard Bhagavatam? Maharaj Parikshit heard Bhagavatam. So, who spoke Bhagavatam? Shukadev Goswami. So the second question, the second questions are related to, second set of questions are related to Shukadev Goswami. So they were like kind of 6 and 7. That there were like, they talk about Shukadev Goswami, and they ask, he's in like, very great soul, and what is the need for him to come in contact with King Parikshit? He was just roaming around. And how did people recognize him when he entered the city of Hastinapur? But they also mentioned other qualities. So these are the questions. Second set of questions relate to Shukadev Goswami, and third set of questions are related to Maharaj Parikshit. So tell us about his birth and activities, and he was a great king. What is the need for him to give up everything and to go hear Bhagavatam? So he was very opulent. So like that. Okay, so the questions are related to 3 areas. First one is about the history of Bhagavatam. And the second set of questions are related to Shukadev Goswami. And third set of questions are related to Maharaj Parikshit. And all these 3 sets of questions were answered in the first canto. So from this chapter onwards till the 19th chapter, all these sets of questions were discussed. So the first first set of questions related to history of Bhagavatam are described in 4, 5, and 6. Chapters 4, 5, and 6. And the rest were discussed in the rest of the chapters. So let's dig deep into these verses from 1 to 13. So Vyasadev, I beg your pardon, yes? Yeah. So on hearing Suta Goswami from the 3rd chapter about Bhagavatam, he kind of congratulated him. So it is said that so he addressed, and here there are a couple of points mentioned. So on hearing Suta Goswami, Shaunaka Muni, elderly leader of all rishis, engaged in that prolonged sacrificial ceremony, congratulated Suta Goswami by addressing him as follows. So there are 2 points in that purport. One is that who should congratulate? So Prabhupada writes here, the congratulator, the one who is congratulating others, should, yes. So he must be the leader of the house, an elderly man, and he must be vastly learned also. So when we are in a group, we are kind of congratulating someone, addressing someone. So that person, the congratulator, should be leader, should be an elderly man, and should be learned. These three qualities of a congratulator. And so Suta Goswami is narrating this Bhagavatam. He is personally realized it. So what does personal realization means? Personal realization, I will read it out. Personal realization does not mean that one should out of vanity attempt to show one's own learning by trying to surpass previous acharya. He must have full confidence in previous acharyas. And at the same time, he must realize the subject matter so nicely and that he can present the matter for the particular circumstances in a suitable manner. So the personal realization means we may alter the examples and things like to suit the needs of the public in general, but we should have full realization, full faith on our previous acharyas. We should never think that we are greater than them. And the original purpose of the text should be always maintained. So this is personal realization. So Shaunaka said that please narrate this wonderful Srimad Bhagavatam to us. And then he asks in the text 3 that in what period, at what place, this was first begun and why was it taken up? And there are several questions. From where did Krishna Dwapayana Vyasa, the great sage, get the inspiration to write, compile this famous literature, Srimad Bhagavatam? So then, from text 4 to 8, Shaunaka Muni talks about Shukadev Goswami, and he says that Shukadev Goswami was a great equibalanced monist. He was quite elevated person, and he appeared like an ignorant man. This is one point in the text 4. Just remember, he appeared like an ignorant man. So Prabhupada says one important point. Please make a note of it. A sage, yes, a sage is not recognized by the sight, but by recognized by hearing. So then they talk about Shukadev Goswami further, how advanced he was. So once Shukadev Goswami was passing by, so he was naked. He didn't wear any clothes. He was not at all on the bodily platform. He was such an elevated soul. As soon as he was born, so he stayed in mother's tummy for 16 years or so. When Krishna came, came and asked him to come out of the tummy, so he came out of his mother's tummy. So then after he was born, immediately started running to the forest. And while he was going to the forest, Vyasdev was following him. So at that time, there were some heavenly damsels taking bath in a lake. So they did not wear any clothes. Shukadev Goswami, who was a young man, it's only 16-year-old. So he did not wear any clothes. So, but the damsels did not cover their bodies at all. Whereas Vyasdev, when they saw Vyasdev was properly dressed, and also he was on the level of their grandfather. But the ladies, they covered their bodies. And Vyasdev questioned, what is this? My son is a young person who did not wear his clothes, and you neglected to wear your clothes. But when I came, I'm on the level of your grandfather. What is this? You're wearing your clothes. So the lady said that his son was that he could not he could not distinguish between male and female. Whereas the sage made such distinction. Prabhupada says that Vasudev was a great transcendentalist, but yet he's an householder. He had a wife. So a householder should make such kind of distinctions. So that is one important point. So the thing is, Shukadeva Goswami was just wandering in the forest like a madman. So Kuru and Jangala. So how did people in Hastinapur, they recognized him? Sorry, this is the point I wanted to mention. So he was just like roaming like a madman. How did people in Hastinapur recognize him? So here, this is the point Prabhupada mentioned. A sage is not therefore recognized by the sight, but by hearing. So sometimes we look at the external appearance and we kind of bewilder ourselves. But sages are like that. So we should hear and then understand their greatness, not just by looking at their external appearance. So they also mentioned that Shukadeva Goswami, he would go to a door of an householder and he would stay only long enough for a cow to be milked. And why did he do this? This is to sanctify that residence. You know, when the cow is milked, the saintly people go. It takes around 15 to 30 minutes. And as soon as the milk comes, you know, these saintly people, they ask alms, and they take some milk, cow milk, and they leave that place. And why do they do so? This is to sanctify the residence of Grihasthas. When a saintly person goes to a householder, it doesn't mean that he wants something, some benefit from them. Rather, he wants to benefit the householders. And then from 9 to, 12, they talk about Parikshit Maharaj. And, you know, they said Parikshit Maharaj's birth and activities were all wonderful. So his birth was wonderful. He was saved by Krishna. His activities were wonderful. He chastised Kali. And his death was also wonderful. He heard Srimad Bhagavatam, and he fasted 7 days, 7 nights and 7 days. All are wonderful. So please explain about these things to me, these things to us. And the other questions were that he was very opulent, very opulent. He got everything, but why did he give up and went to Ganges and sat down there? Like that, they've asked about Parikshit Maharaj. So one point that is mentioned here, that we know that you are expert in the meaning of all subjects except some portions of Vedas, and thus you can clearly explain the answer to all the questions we have just put to you. So Prabhupada mentions in the purport that except some portions of the Vedas, means Suta Goswami is well versed except some portions of the Vedas. There are a couple of wonderful points Prabhupada mentions, that Brahmana, difference between Brahmana and Parivrajaka Acharyas. Brahmanas, they are usually, they are meant to administer some putative sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas in the society. So they are trained how to chant the mantra in certain meter, how to pronounce. Whereas Parivrajaka Acharyas are preachers. Their main aim is, they may not be expert in the Vedic pronunciation and Vedic mantras, but they distribute this knowledge to people in general by just wandering. So it does the same job, basically. So you need not to be expert, but if you can disseminate this knowledge to others, that would be fine. So next we'll move on to the next section, from 14 to 25, please.
Dhruv can read.
Suta Goswami said, when the second millennium overlapped the third, the great sage Vyasadeva was born to Parashara in the womb of Satyavati, the daughter of Vasu. Once upon a time, he, Vyasadeva, as the sun rose, took his morning ablution in the waters of the Saraswati and sat along to concentrate. The great sage Vyasadeva saw anomalies in the duties of the millennium. This happens on the earth in different ages due to the unseen force of time. The great sage, who was fully equipped in knowledge, could see through his transcendental vision the deterioration of everything material due to the influence of age. He could also see that the faithless person in general would be reduced in duration of life and would be impatient due to lack of goodness. Thus, he contemplated for the welfare of men in all statuses and orders of life. He saw that the sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas were means by which the people's occupation could be purified, and to simplify the process, he divided the one Veda into four in order to expand them among men. The four divisions of the original source of knowledge, the Vedas, were made separately, but the historical facts and authentic stories mentioned in the Puranas are called the fifth Veda. After the Vedas were divided into four divisions, Bela Rishi became the professor of the
Rig Veda. Rig Veda.
Rig Veda, and Jaimini, the professor of the Samaveda, and Vaishambhayana alone became glorified by the Yajur Veda. The Samanta Muni Angira, who was very devotedly engaged, was entrusted with the Atharva Veda. And my father, Romaharshana, was entrusted with the Puranas and historical records. All these learned scholars in their turn rendered their entrusted Vedas unto their many disciples, grand disciples, and great grand disciples, and thus the respective branches of the followers of the Vedas came into being. Thus the great sage Vyasadeva, who is very kind to the ignorant masses, edited the Vedas so they might be assimilated by less intellectual men. Out of compassion, the great sage thought it wise that this would enable men to achieve the ultimate goal of life. Thus, he compiled the great historical narration called the Mahabharata for women, laborers and friends of the twice-born.
Thank you very much, Dhruv. This is the second section. So by this Suta Goswami spoke from verse 14 onwards upon being questioned by Shaunaka. So we have seen three sets of questions. First set is related to the Bhagavatam, history of Bhagavatam. Second set related to Shukadeva Goswami. Third set related to Parikshit Maharaj. So upon hearing Suta Goswami started speaking. When the second millennium overlapped the third, the great sage Vyasdeva was born to Parashara in the womb of Satyavati, to the daughter of Vasu. So the order of 4 millenniums, 4 yugas is as follows. It is first Satya, then Dwapara, then Treta, then Kali Yuga. But in this particular Chatur Yuga, which is 28th cycle, in one day of Brahma, sorry, there are some mathematics here if you want to remember. In one day of Brahma consists 4,000 Chatur Yugas. One day of Brahma consists 1,000 Chatur Yugas. And then in one day of Brahma, there are 14 Manus come. So each Manu's duration of life is 1,000 divided by 14. That is 71 Chatur Yugas. 71 cycles of these 4 yugas. So current Manu's name is Vaivasvata. And current cycle is the 28th cycle of 4 yugas. As I said, 71 is lifespan. So if Kali Yuga finishes, when Kali Yuga finishes, you would finish 28 cycles. So still have so many left to reach to 71 cycles. So the order is Satya, Dwapara, Treta, and Kali Yuga. But in this cycle, in this 28th cycle, some or other, the Treta Yuga came before Dwapar Yuga. And then Dwapar Yuga came later. And that time, Vyasdeva was born to Satyavati. There is a little historical story I will narrate how Vyasdeva was born. This Satyavati is the daughter of Vasu, who is a fisherman. Satyavati and there is another boy were found in a fish. This Vasu is the fisherman. Being fisherman, he was catching all the fishes, and in one fish, when he cut open the tummy, then he found a male and a female. So then he took these 2 personalities, 2 children, to the king. King took the boy, but he said that this little girl was smelly, smelling fish, Matsya Gandha. So he said, you raise her. So Vasu, the fisherman, started raising her. And she was kind of helping people to cross from one place to another place, on the bank of a river, ferrying, basically, people, ferrying people. So one day, the great sage Parashara was, she was helping Parashara Muni to cross the river. So Parashara, so he was captivated by the beauty of this young lady and proposed that he would bless her with a great child. And she said, no, I will lose my virginity, and then also, how do we, it's an open place, and Parashara Muni said, don't worry, that I would just by glancing, with your permission, then I would make you pregnant, and then a child can be born. So Parashara Muni created a great mist of fog around that little boat within that within that river, and just by glancing her, so he blessed her with a child. He was born on an island. So as soon as he was born, immediately he's grown to adult immediately. And then he told his mother, he took his permission, and that I'm going to go to the forest. I have a mission. So this Vasudeva is non-different from Krishna, like, I beg your pardon, is an incarnation of Krishna. It is called empowered incarnation. Is a literary incarnation of Krishna. So he left to the forest. So that was about his birth. So this Vasudeva was living in Badrikashram, and near Badrikashram there is a place called Shamyaprastha. Let me see. Shamyaprastha.
Yeah.
So there is a place called within Badrikashram, Shamyaprasa. That's where he was, and then river Saraswati was flowing there. He took his morning, oblations, and then he just started to meditate. When he started to meditate, he could see that there are so many anomalies in Kali Yuga. And he could see there are people, less intelligent people, short-lived people are in passion and ignorance. They don't know how to understand these, Vedic literature. They are not too intelligent enough to understand. They're very materially attached. So what can be done to save these people, to benefit these people? What can be done? So thus he contemplated for the welfare of men in all status and order of life. See, this is the symptom of a great personality. A great personality always thinks about the welfare of others. That is a great character. Prabhupada, leaving Vrindavan, taking pain, came to West for the benefit, for the welfare of humankind. So then he decided that it is better if I give this Vedic knowledge to these people, and they can understand, and then they can benefit, they can progress. So thinking like that, he divided one Veda into 4 Vedas. Okay, so the full name of Vasudeva is Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa. Krishna means, he resembles Krishna in the color. Dvaipayana means he was born on an island in Sanskrit called Dvipa. And Vyasa means who splits. So he kind of, he segregated one Veda into 4 Vedas. The original Veda was called Yajur Veda, and this Veda was now split into 4. That is Yajur, Adharvana, Ruk, and Sama, and then he entrusted each Veda to one particular disciple. So Paila Rishi became professor of Rig Veda, Jaimini became professor of Samaveda, Vaishampayana became Yajur Veda, and Sumantu Muni Angira was entrusted Atharva Veda. So they were entrusted so that they can spread this message in the society. And then later, the Puranas, historical narrations, were entrusted to Romarshana Sutta, who is the father of Sutta Goswami. So then, that's how they gave it to their disciples, and then grand disciple. The message was kind of disseminated in the society. So Srila Vasudeva, what did he do? Apart from this segregating one Veda into 4 Vedas, he composed these Puranas, as I mentioned. Puranas are like, story form. They give the history. So there will be principles of Vedas in the Puranas, but they are like history. They are story form there. Because, people are not in general can understand. General mass of people cannot understand the Vedas directly. For them, the Puranas are better options. Everything can be explained in the form of story. And then what did he do? out of compassion, he did another thing, that he narrated Mahabharat. It is said that Mahabharat for women, laborer, friends, and twice born. Because Mahabharat, it is in the story form, and also there is a hidden gem in Mahabharat, that is Bhagavad Gita. So after doing everything, yes, I think we have to go to the next section from 26 to 33.
Sumit Prabhuji.
Sumit.
Is he there?
Yes, yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare
So
Krishna, Prabhu.
I need to read from 26, right?
26, yeah, to the end.
Okay. So text 26. O twice born Brahmanas, still his mind was not satisfied, although he engaged himself in working for the total welfare of all people. Text 27. Thus the sage, being dissatisfied at heart, at once began to reflect, because he knew the essence of religion, and he said within himself. Text 28 and 29. I have, under strict disciplinary vows, unpretentiously worshipped the Vedas, the spiritual masters, and the altar of sacrifice. I have also abided by the rulings and have shown the import of disciplic succession through the explanation of Mahabharata, by which even women, Shudras, and others, friends of twice born, can see the path of religion. Text 30. I am feeling incomplete, though I myself am fully equipped with everything required by the Vedas. Text 31. This may be because I did not specifically point out the devotional service of the Lord, which is dear both to perfect beings and to an infallible Lord. Text 32. As mentioned before, Narada reached the cottage of Krishna Dwapayan Vyas on the banks of Saraswati, just as Vyasdev was regretting his defects. Text 33. At the auspicious arrival of Sri Narada, Sri Vasudev got up respectfully and worshipped him, giving him veneration equal to that given to Brahmaji, the creator. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. So he divided one Veda into 4 Vedas, and he entrusted each Veda to each of his disciple, and then he put together all the histories in the form of Puranas, Itihasas, and then he composed this Mahabharat, which is in the story form, and he incorporated Bhagavad Gita in the middle. So all this he did for the welfare of people in general. But verse 25 says that although he did everything, this wonderful job, he was not satisfied. He is feeling dissatisfied at the heart. And he was questioning himself, what is the cause for my dissatisfaction? I've done this job perfectly. And why am I feeling this incompleteness and dissatisfaction in me? I've done a wonderful job. So why am I feeling incomplete? And then in 31, he tried to answer his own question. Maybe, it may be, I'm feeling dissatisfied, I'm feeling incomplete, I'm feeling despondent because, this may be because I did not specifically glorify the devotional service of the Lord. There is a glorification here and there, but not specific, not specifically glorified, not fully glorified the devotion unto the Lord. Maybe this could be the reason why I'm feeling emptiness, why I'm feeling incomplete. And while he was thinking like this, and his spiritual master and Narada Muni appeared on the scene. Vasudev was sitting on the bank of river Saraswati. So at that place, Narada Muni appeared. So when Narad came, so he got up. This is the respect. When your guru comes, when a senior Vaishnava comes, when we see a Vaishnava, we offer respect. So he stood up and he offered great veneration to Narada Muni. So this is where the chapter ends. And one important point from this section, the last section, is that imagine Vasudev, who is an incarnation of the Lord God, is called Shakti Avesh Avatar, empowered incarnation, and he's called Veda Vyas. He's so great, so expert. He knows all portions of Vedas, all Puranas, but yet he was feeling incomplete. And then he answers his own question. It may be because I've not given enough attention, enough glorification to the devotional service of the Lord, and his activities are not fully probably glorified enough. So the point is that only the devotion satisfies, nothing else. Let's read the purport, text 32. I'll read it out, it's simple. The vacuum felt by Vasudev was not due to his lack of knowledge. Bhagavad Dharma is purely devotional service of the Lord, to which the monist has no access. The monist is not counted amongst the Paramahamsas, the most perfect of the renounced order of life. Srimad Bhagavatam is full of narrations of the transcendental activities of the personality of Godhead. Although Vasudev was an empowered divinity, he still felt dissatisfaction because in none of his works were transcendental activities of the Lord properly explained. The inspiration was infused by Sri Krishna directly in the heart of Vasudev, and thus he felt the vacuum as explained above. It is definitely expressed here with that without transcendental loving service of the Lord, everything is void. But in the transcendental service of the Lord, everything is tangible, without any separate attempt at putative work, empirical philosophical speculation. So by just performing this devotional service unto the Lord, you achieve all other things as byproduct. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayatyashu Vairagyam Jnanam Cha Yadahaitukam. Chapter 2, verse 7. So when we perform this devotional service onto Vasudeva Bhagavati, Bhagavan Vasudeva, so Janayatyashu Vairagyam, when we perform this devotion, this detachment and knowledge, they come as byproduct. There is no separate endeavor to acquire detachment and the speculative knowledge. Okay, so I will just summarize the chapter again. We got 8 minutes. So this chapter is entitled The Appearance of Sri Narada. This follows from the discussion that happened in chapter 3. At the end of chapter 3, Suta Goswami mentioned about Bhagavatam being great. Bhagavatam is non-different from Krishna. And after Krishna disappeared, he reappeared in the form of Bhagavatam. And the dharma, the religion and the knowledge took shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam. People who have lost their sight due to dense darkness of this Kali Yuga, ignorance, they can take shelter of this Bhagavatam and get benefited. This Bhagavatam was composed by Vyasdev and then gave it to, taught it to his son Shukadeva Goswami. And then Shukadeva Goswami narrated to Parikshit Maharaj. When it was being narrated to Parikshit, Sutta Goswami says that I was present there, I heard it, and I wanted to narrate the same thing to you all sages. And then from there, so Shaunaka, the head of the sages of Naimisharanya, so he poses several inquiries. And so these questions or inquiries were, three sets, three varieties. The first set of questions are related to history of Bhagavatam, how Vyasdev got inspiration to compile this Bhagavatam, how, when, it was compiled. So first set of questions related to the history of Bhagavatam, and second set were kind of related to Shukadeva Goswami. Those inquiries, the comments, they mention how great Shukadeva Goswami was, that, he could not distinguish between a male and female. And he did not care to wear any clothes at all, and he just wanders in the forest like a madman. How come he came in touch with Parikshit? He doesn't stay at the door of a householder for long. He only stays, long enough to be cow to be a milk. So only duration, 30 minutes, something like that. But how long, Sukadeva Goswami stayed in the presence of Maharaj Parikshit? 7 days and 7 nights. So how did it happen? And then the third set of questions are related to Parikshit Maharaj, and they ask, tell us his birth and his activities. Parikshit Maharaj was a great king, great devotee, first-class devotee, and he was very opulent, and he was a great king as well. In his, when he was ruling, everything was so perfect. He chastised Kali. And why did he renounce everything and decided to hear Srimad Bhagavatam? So these are the third set of questions related to Parikshit Maharaj. First set related to Bhagavatam, second set relates to the speaker, Shukadeva Goswami, and third set relates to the hearer, Parikshit Maharaj. And then in the second section of this chapter, Sutta Goswami mentions that how when Vyasdev was born to Parashara and Satyavati, and then he was living in Bhadrikashram on the bank of river Saraswati. And then, with his divine vision, he could see the anomalies of this Kali Yuga. And he wanted to benefit whole humankind. For the welfare of people, he divided one Veda into 4 Vedas, and he entrusted each Veda to each of his disciples. And then he composed the history in the form of Purana. This is called 5th Veda, by the way. The Puranas are called 5th Veda. And these Puranas were entrusted to father of Sutta Goswami, Romarshan Sutta. So, and Vyasdev also compiled Mahabharata for less intelligent people, because it is in the form of story. There is Bhagavad Gita also. So after doing this wonderful, great welfare activity, he was still not satisfied in the third section. That he was feeling incomplete, dissatisfied, despondent, and he started to question himself. Why? Why is this happening? I've done a great work, a great job. Why am I feeling incomplete? And then, so he answers his own question, maybe because I've not fully glorified the devotional service and the activities of Lord Shri Krishna. That could be the reason. And while thinking in that way, his spiritual master, Narada Muni, appeared on the scene, and Vyasdev got up from his seat, offered full respects, and that's where this chapter ends. The main point from the third section is that only the devotion satisfies us, because by nature, by nature, we are we are servant of Krishna. That is our nature. So just like, that is our natural position. Just like a fish in the water, if you take out the fish and give so many things to the fish, it wouldn't be happy at all, because it's not in its natural state. So whatever we try to do, we will never be satisfied. That is guaranteed. The only thing that will satisfy us is a devotional service on Lord Krishna. When we do devotional service onto Krishna, the detachment and the knowledge, they come as byproducts. And that's where I end sharp 8 o'clock. And I just wanted to mention one thing. I've seen Anil Prabhu, you are there?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes. So I was reading, and regarding your question about Vyasdev.
Yes, Prabhu.
So he was born in Dwapara Yuga. Every yuga has got 3 sandhyas: first, second, third sandhya. So he was born in the 3rd sandhya. That means end of Dwapara Yuga.
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah.
So end of Dwapara Yuga. So I just wanted to answer that. Madhav Kumar Prabhu raised his hand. He may say so, speak something.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much for the wonderful summary. I'm sure everybody benefited. I just wanted to say to all devotees that the month of Bhadra is still on for another 2 weeks. So we've read the chapter nicely. We can all benefit from participating in quiz for the next 2 Saturday, which Sumedha is very, very nicely putting together for us. And when you participate in the quiz based on the same reading of the Bhagavatam, you put yourself in a chance to win some wonderful prizes, including the Srimad Bhagavatam full set in English for only £108. Also, by the end of this month, we will have a few more copies of the Bhagavatam in 5 regional Indian languages. Again, Telugu, Bengali, Hindi, Gujarati, and Tamil. So if you know any friends or families that may be interested, please let me know. But other than that, hope to see you again 11 a.m. Coming Saturday. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Madhav Kumar Prabhu. I just wanted to see if anybody has any questions or any comments.
Just one question, Prabhu.
Sure.
In the 3rd chapter, 5th text, it is said, Vamana is the Vaivashvata Manu.
Sorry, 3rd chapter?
In text 5, Vamana is the Vaivashvata Manu. So is he the Aditi Mata's son, Vamana Deva?
In 135?
Yes, Prabhu, yeah.
In the purport?
Yes, Prabhu, in the purport.
Okay, so what did he, okay, just let me find out. Vamana.
Yeah.
Okay, what was mentioned, sorry, about Vamana?
So Vamana is the Vaivashvata Manu. So is that Vamana is the Aditi Mata's son?
So I'll need to double check whether I've never heard Vamana being the Vaivasvata Manu, but please remember that all these Manus, Prabhupada mentioned, all these Manus are partial incarnations of the Supreme Lord himself, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is mentioned several times, but I'll go and double check it is whether it is Vaman, but it is mentioned in several places that all these Prajapatis and Manus are the expansions and expansions of the 24 portions of Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. Thank you for that. Any more comments?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I was just going to add, I may be wrong, but in Krishna book it's mentioned Vamandev appeared as Aditi Mata's son.
No, that is right. Vamandev appeared as Aditi Mata's son, but
yeah.
that is, I'm very well
just
aware
to
of that.
answer Prabhu's question, that's all he was asking.
Vaman is your question whether Vaman is Aditi's son?
No.
No, your question is,
Manu.
I think, whether he is Manu, whether Manu is incarnation of Vaman. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I think it is possible that it could be, when Prabhupada mentions in the purport, it could be. But all these manus or expansions of Sri Krishna.
Yeah, there 14 manus names are mentioned.
Yes. Okay, so if there are no questions, then should we, because next week, yes, anybody wants to say anything?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Very excellent lecture, Prabhuji. Very
Thank you.
clearly. Thank you.
Yeah.
Next week is Radha Ashtami, no?
Yes, next week, Radhashtami, then we have to skip again our class, unfortunately. Radhashtami celebrations will be there. There will be class, and we are trying to do flower abhishek, etc. So there won't be class next Wednesday. I'm sorry. Meena Mataji?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I wanted to just check with you. They say that Prabhupada is incarnation of Vyasadeva.
So
Is that correct?
Prabhupada, it is said, I don't know whether it is exactly Vyasadeva. It is said he is mentioned as a Senapati Bhakta by Bhakti Vinod Thakur. A Senapati, a leader, would appear and spread this message to the whole world. So Prabhupada is, is considered to be one of the empowered potency of the Lord, definitely. So I'm not sure whether it is. I've never heard anywhere it is mentioned about Vyas being as Prabhupada, but there are several places it is mentioned that is an empowered potency of the Lord.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay, so thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
very much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol.